On Wednesday night, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine, sparking the largest war on the European continent since the end of World War II. But as fighting rages on within Ukraine, rumors are swirling about a single Ukrainian MiG-29 pilot allegedly shooting down 6 Russian fighters in a single day. But is the ghost of Kyiv real? Let's dive into it. I'm Alex Hollings, and this is AirPower. Before we dive into the story, I want to let you know that this week's video will be a bit different than those we usually put up. I usually spend a great deal of my nights and weekends working on these videos while I run Sandboxx news during the work week. But this week, I've been very busy appearing on news segments around the country talking about the invasion of Ukraine. And the rest of my team has been awfully busy too. So, this week I'm putting together a pretty brief video that I'm going to have to write and record all on the same day that it goes up, so I apologize if the production value isn't quite what it usually is. I'm hopeful that next week I can get back to something closer to business as usual. With that preamble and disclaimer out of the way, let's dive into this, because so far there's been no official confirmation that such an incredible pilot like this Ghost of Kyiv could really exist. And although Ukrainian forces have confirmed that at least 7 Russian aircraft have been shot down since the fighting began a few days ago, that doesn't necessarily mean much in its own right. Fighting in Ukraine is spread over a large swath of territory, making it seem more likely that these Russian aircraft have been shot down in multiple areas in multiple skirmishes. But just because the Ghost of Kyiv isn't probable, doesn't necessarily mean that such a thing is impossible. So let's take a look at the claims. According to the memes and the scuttlebutt floating around military and aviation circles online, this Ghost of Kyiv has been credited with shooting down at least 6 Russian fighters in a single day, and among them were some of Russia's most capable and advanced platforms. According to these unconfirmed reports, this single Ukrainian MiG-29 has shot down 1 Su-27, a MiG-29, 2 Su-25s, and 2 Su-35 Flanker Es. Now, the Su-25 Frogfoots are considered fighters, but they're not really designed for air-to-air combat. In some ways, it might be better to compare these to America's own A-10 Thunderbolt II, which, as we've discussed in the past, can fight in the sky, but really only as a last resort. However, Su-27 flankers are super maneuverable fighters designed specifically to compete with the likes of America's best Cold War jets, platforms like the F-14 Tomcat and F-15 Eagle. The Su-35 is an updated iteration of the Su-27, made even more capable in the sky. In the past, some have argued that the Su-35 could even be a match for America's F-22 as long as they were within visual range. Of course, that's an assertion that'll probably never be tested, because an F-22 would almost certainly shoot down a Su-35 before the Russians even knew he was there. And then there's the report of the Ghost of Kyiv downing another MiG-29, which again, is no slouch as far as Soviet-era hardware goes. The MiG-29, NATO reporting name Fulcrum, is an air superiority fighter designed by the Soviet Union in the 1970s to compete directly with capable American jets like the F-16 and F-15 Eagle. It's a twin-engine fighter that was originally designed specifically for an air-to-air combat role before incorporating some multi-role capabilities a bit further down the road. In 2019, it was reported that Ukraine maintains a fleet of about 37 MiG-29s. These fighters are about 57 feet long, with a wingspan of just over 37 feet. They're powered by a pair of RD-33 afterburning turbofan engines that can each produce a whopping 18,340 pounds of thrust under afterburner. That makes this 9G-rated fighter capable of speeds as high as Mach 2.25. The MiG-29 carries 7 weapon stations, 3 under each wing and a single hardpoint on the aircraft's centerline. It can carry around 8,800 pounds of ordnance. It also carries a single 30mm onboard autocannon with 150 rounds at its disposal. Now, as unlikely as this Ghost of Kyiv may be, there are some glimmers of hope that there could be some truth behind the rumors. The most striking evidence you're likely to come across was actually shared by Ukrainian armed forces on Twitter, and it's a video that looks an awful lot like a Ukrainian MiG-29 downing a Russian fighter, seemingly either a Su-27 or Su-35. From the distance in the video, it's really difficult to differentiate between the two. The best ways I know how to differentiate a Su-35 from a Su-27 at a distance are the Su-35's lack of air brake, its different nose fairings, and its different landing gear up front. But you can't see any of that in this footage. But as incredible as this footage is, and let me be honest, it is really awesome to watch, a lot of people have already questioned its veracity, and maybe for good reason. If you trace the footage back to where it seems to originate, the description originally claims that the air combat was recorded using DCS, or Digital Combat Simulator. DCS is a very popular combat flight simulator among aviation buffs, and we've even used footage for it in some of our YouTube videos here on our AirPower series. In that seemingly original post, the description says, and I quote, "This footage is from DCS, but it is nevertheless made out of respect for the ghost of Kiev. If he is real, may God be with him. If he is fake, I pray for more like him." As much as we'd all just love to believe in the ghost of Kiev, and we love the idea of a Ukrainian fighter pilot becoming an ace in a single day, right now there isn't any evidence to suggest that this pilot or their incredible accomplishments really exist. Of course, that in itself also doesn't mean much. It's really hard to know what's going on in Ukraine as the battle is literally raging as we speak. But there are some hard facts that kind of make this Ghost of Kiev story feel a little less likely. First and foremost, downing 6 enemy fighters in a single day would require a really substantial air-to-air loadout. The MiG-29 can carry a total of 6 air-to-air weapons. Weapons like Ukraine's R-27R and R-27T, both medium-range air-to-air weapons, and the R-73 short-range weapon. But even with this loadout, it would be incredibly difficult for a single MiG-29 to score 6 kills with 6 missiles in a single sortie. So for the Ghost of Kiev to be real, the pilot would likely have to fly multiple sorties in a single day, quickly rearming between each. And again, this isn't impossible, but it is really tough. Another thing not working in the Ghost of Kiev's favor is the fact that these MiG-29s are effectively very, very similar to the MiG-29s operated by Russian pilots. And that means that most of these Russian pilots have probably squared off with MiG-29s in training before. Imagine American fighter pilots squaring off against F-16s. They would obviously be pretty aware of the aircraft's capabilities and even its most common tactics, which makes it easier to defend against them. But, and I can't emphasize this enough, the fighting in Ukraine is ongoing, and the only people who really know what's going on right now are the people living through it. Could the Ghost of Kiev be real? Yeah. Although, to be totally frank, it doesn't seem incredibly likely. But to be honest with you, maybe it doesn't matter. Regardless of whether a single pilot shot down 6 Russian fighters yesterday, or 6 different Ukrainian pilots each shot down 1, these men and women are fighting for the very fate of their country. That warrants our respect, whether they're fighter aces or not. But as far as this fan of both aviation and democracy is concerned, I too want to believe in the Ghost of Kiev. And on that ends an unusual edition of AirPower from Sandboxx News. I'm Alex Hollings. Make sure to swing by sandboxnews.com today and every day for all the latest in news, entertainment, and motivation from all around the force. We've got a lot of coverage about what's going on in Ukraine right now. If you got anything out of today's video, please click like and subscribe, and leave me a comment so I know what I should cover next. And of course, don't forget to tap on that bell icon so you never miss a drop from Sandboxx News.